the Young and the Restless spoilers. Here's an expanded narrative based on your outline, exploring Sharon's psychological turmoil, her past actions, and Heather's hidden revenge. This will add layers of suspense and horror as Sharon wrestles with her guilt and fear, uncertain of what's real or imagined. Sharon couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. She knew it sounded paranoid, even ridiculous, but the sensation was all-consuming, haunting her every step. Ever since that fateful night, when her hands had trembled as she swung down on Heather, she'd lived in a state of quiet dread, constantly looking over her shoulder, convinced that her past would eventually catch up to her. In her mind, Heather was supposed to be gone forever, a memory left to fade with time. But instead, Sharon found herself plagued by flashes of Heather's face, pale, cold, and marked by betrayal. The memory of Heather's eyes, wide with horror, haunted her, resurfacing in her mind with shocking clarity. Every shadow seemed to resemble her, and every quiet room felt full of whispers. It was as if Heather were still with her, a ghostly reminder of the wrong she tried to bury. Yet there was something deeper at play, something Sharon hadn't dared to confront. She started to think that maybe Heather hadn't disappeared after all. Sharon's imagination ran wild. What if Heather had survived the attack? What if she was hiding somewhere, waiting for the right moment to exact her revenge? The thought settled uneasily in Sharon's mind, taking root and growing like a weed. It wasn't just paranoia anymore, it was a full-fledged obsession. She began to see Heather everywhere. The face in the window, the shadow on the wall, even the reflection in her mirror, each one seemed to resemble Heather, staring back at her with an intensity that froze her blood. Sharon's world shrank as the haunting visions took over her life. One night, as she sat alone in her dimly lit living room, she heard a faint creak behind her. Heart pounding, she spun around, and there, in the shadows, was Heather's face, pale, ghostly, with a single dark streak of dried blood across her forehead. Sharon's body went cold, her mouth dry with terror. She blinked, and Heather was gone. Sharon let out a shaky breath, trying to tell herself it was a trick of the light, her mind playing cruel games on her. Desperation drove Sharon to seek comfort from Nick, someone she trusted to understand her. She tried to explain the fear that had wrapped around her like a vice, her voice trembling as she spoke of Heather's face appearing out of nowhere, of the feeling that someone was following her, waiting in the dark. Nick, patient and calm, listened, his brows knit with concern. But he couldn't bring himself to believe her. After all, he knew how guilt could eat at a person's mind. He assured Sharon that it was just her imagination, that she was letting old guilt distort her reality. But Sharon couldn't accept that. The encounters felt too real. She began to believe that Heather was alive, hiding, waiting for the right moment to make Sharon pay for what she had done. Sharon's anxiety mounted with each passing day, a gnawing fear that ate away at her sanity. Every small noise, every flicker of movement in her peripheral vision, sent her into a spiral of dread. She could hardly sleep, her nights filled with vivid dreams of Heather standing over her, eyes dark and accusing. Unbeknownst to Sharon, her suspicions weren't as far-fetched as they seemed. Heather had, in fact, survived that brutal night, her life hanging by a thread. She'd managed to escape the nightmare, hiding away and allowing the world to believe she was dead. But Heather was driven by a fierce determination, fueled by the pain and betrayal she felt. She remembered the blow to her head, the sickening crunch, the sensation of her body collapsing to the floor. She recalled the sound of Sharon's footsteps retreating, leaving her there, discarded like a broken doll. That memory had stayed with her, burning like a brand, urging her to survive, if only to one day make Sharon feel the same terror and helplessness she had felt that night. Heather chose to keep her survival a secret, building her strength in silence and plotting her revenge. She wanted Sharon to feel the same helplessness, the same horror of realizing she couldn't escape her fate. She'd perfected the art of blending into the background, slipping in and out of Sharon's life undetected, leaving traces just subtle enough to make Sharon question her sanity. Heather wanted to haunt Sharon, to make her second-guess her reality, to live every day in fear of what might come. For Heather, revenge wasn't about violence, it was about justice. She wanted Sharon to feel haunted, trapped, unable to find peace. She took her time, appearing and disappearing at will, always ensuring that she was close enough to terrify Sharon but never close enough for anyone else.